Okay, for what I see, I think most people are now in the room and connected to audio. So, welcome so much. This is the last of our three-part series of the Workforce Professional Development series. Today, we're going to be focused on the rural health workforce. So, I'm just going to go through some intro housekeeping slides, and then I'm going to pass it to our very esteemed speaker, Judd Mellinger-Blauch. And please, if I mispronounced your last name, Judd, please let me know and just jump in and correct me at any point. But truly, Judd is a great friend of the STAR Center and ACU, so we're very, very honored to have him here today. Okay, so if you all have been part of this series or really attended any of our trainings, you've seen a lot of these intro slides, so I'll go through them kind of quickly, but we're the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved. We were started a little bit over 25 years ago by National Health Service Corps alumni. We have a lot of different programming that we provide, and one of the areas of focus is in workforce. And one of those programs actually what brings you all here today for this training session is the STAR Center, and that stands for Solutions, Training, and Assistance for Recruitment and Retention. And really what that means is we are one of 22 national training and technical assistant partners that are funded by BIBIC and HRSA, and our specific focus is on supporting health centers with their recruitment and retention. We do have our own separate website, which is www.chcworkforce.org. And since we are funded by the Bureau of Primary Healthcare and the Health Resources and Services Administration, all of the resources, training, and technical assistance that we provide are free for you to use. We also have a direct email contact, and that does go to a real person, my colleague, Sydney Axelrod. So feel free to use that email if you have any questions or need any training or technical assistance. I also wanted to provide the slide. This is the wonderful STAR Center team. So I am Michelle Fernandez Gabilondo. We have Mariah Blake on the call today. As I said, Sydney is the person that your emails go directly to if you use our info at chcworkforce.org, and Suzanne Spears, our VP of Workforce Development. This slide too is also for you to have our direct contacts in case you need it. Okay, and then just a general housekeeping slide. So as we did with all of the other sessions in this series, they are being recorded, and the recording and the slides are all going to be provided to the registrants. Please use the chat box to ask any questions, share any comments or thoughts. I'm going to be making sure to monitor the chat. So at the end, I will make sure to read to Judd any questions or comments that may be coming through. And then if you are having technical difficulties, Mariah Blake is your go-to person. So please go ahead and send her a message. And then towards the end of the session, we're going to have an evaluation pop up. It's only, I believe, only 3 questions. We would greatly, greatly appreciate if you could fill that out, please. It is a requirement for us, but also helps us know, like, how can we bring you what you want? How can we improve and continue to bring you this training and technical assistance that we provide you? So with all of that said, yes, I believe that was it for me. So I'm going to go ahead now and pass it over to Judd so he can introduce himself. And I know he has an absolutely amazing presentation. Like I said, a great friend of the STAR Center and ACU. So Judd, take it away. Oh, let me stop sharing first, and then you share, and then take it away.
All right, very good. I'll give you that a second to do that. But while you're doing that, I just want to say thank you. You got really, really close to pronouncing my name correctly. And every time I say Michelle Fernandez Gabilondo, I think that I've learned to speak Spanish. But I'm very far away from that. Anyway, but thank you.
No, you're excellent in the pronunciation.
Okay, very good, very good. And because it's a German name, Mellinger, Blau, all the consonants are are hard. But anyway, it's great to be here. This is a fulfillment of a lifetime goal of mine to speak for the STAR² Center. Really, it's probably not a lifetime goal, but it is a great opportunity for me, and I want to thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. Michelle and Suzanne and Mariah and Sydney do great work over there, as does the whole Association of Clinicians for the Underserved. Wonderful work on behalf of health centers and PCAs and the whole sphere of community health centers. So thanks a lot. Are we at a point where I can share this?
Yes. Sorry,
Okay,
my
so
audio. Yes, go ahead and
okay.
share anytime you're ready. Yep.
Oh, can I? Okay, so what do I do here?
So just if you scroll down, there should be a little share button that
Oh,
pops
okay.
up. Yep.
But I have to have the PowerPoint pulled up, don't I?
Yes. Or I can
Yeah. See, I don't.
let me share it for you. So I'll go ahead
Okay.
and share and just say next slide and we'll go through. So
How do I
no
do
worries.
that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So in case you guys didn't realize I'm a boomer, I know I don't look that old, but every once in a while, I'm pretty good with technology, but every once in a while, it escapes me. I see one of my former colleagues from the Pennsylvania Association of Community Health Centers is on the call, at least one, and she can affirm that I'm not always the slickest with technology. So
And
anyway, so
Judd,
go
it
ahead.
should be up now. I think you can
Yep,
see the slide. So just let me
I
know
can see
whenever
it.
you want me to go to another slide
Great,
and I will do that for
great,
you.
great. Um, Thanks, Caitlin. Anyway, and this is Michelle I'm talking to, but Caitlin just sent me a message. Anyway, so I'm really pleased to be here. I'm celebrating this life achievement, of life achievement, not an award, but uh, just an achievement that by inventing a new word. Um, in previous iteration of this presentation, I used one word over about 50 times. And I'm not going to mention that word because I don't want to put it in your brain. But that word is very common in presentations like this, but it's become a little overused. It's become, I don't know, it's sort of has different meanings to different people, if you will. And some of those meanings, they're not always the best, or just it's kind of a misunderstood concept. So I'm someone who prides himself on my expansive vocabulary. You probably aren't picking that up yet, but I feel like I have a good vocabulary. Could you go to the next slide, please, Michelle? So, and another aside before we get started is in this presentation, I talk a little bit about Shakespeare and theater. I'm a big fan of live theater. My son's an actor, and so that's where the changing the script um, title comes from. So that little side there, ere we commence, give me leave to impart a word most novel. Would be maybe how Shakespeare said, "Let me teach you a new word." So when I was thinking of words, substitute words for the word that I'm not going to mention, two of the words that were suggested were organizational norms and values, and they're good. They're good words, but they just seemed a little too formal for me. Next, Michelle. So then I started thinking about personality, and don't all organizations have a unique personality that's unique to that organization? And then I started thinking about reputation. Next one, please. And I thought, well, reputation is how people view our organizations from outside, perhaps, and a lot of that's influenced. The reputation's influenced by our personality, by our organizational personalities. And then I thought, well, identity is also a key word here, and so identity is kind of, as I thought more about identity is kind of our reputation that we have for ourselves, the way we view ourselves. But so I got norms, values, personality, reputation, and identity. And I've got to use this word about 50 times in my presentation. So I'm not going to repeat those 5 words 50 times. So I came up with a new word, reputationality. It combines personality plus reputation plus identity. It's the intangible about your health center or the rural health clinic or whatever facility or organization you're involved with that makes people want to work there or not, makes people want to get their care there or not. You can't stick a pin in it. You can't uh, bite it. You can't even see it with your eyes, but it's as real as the Botox and Dolly Parton's lips. Okay, it's per reputationality. So you can repeat that, but it is copyrighted by me, 2025. Next slide, please. There we go. So with that word in mind, let me take you to the on a journey to the fair Penns Woods, which is what Pennsylvania means, where our story unfolds. Some folks from western and southern states, large states with large tracts of rural land, might not think of Pennsylvania as a rural state. But in fact, only Texas and North Carolina have more people living in designated rural areas than Pennsylvania. We're not a very big state. We're about 32nd on the size chart, whatever in the size rankings for states, but we have a lot of people living in the rural areas of the north and the farmlands of central and eastern Pennsylvania. So we begin our tale with two health centers, both alike in mission in Fair Penn Woods, where we lay our scene, but very different in their own ways. There's Dutch Country Community Health Center. It's located in the farmlands of eastern Pennsylvania, and many of their patients are Amish or Mennonite. In fact, they have covered areas with hitching rails underneath it where the Amish can park their buggies. As for workforce, they have the advantage of being in an area that being in a location where they're 1 to 2 hours away from major academic medical centers with large training programs for physicians, nursing schools, even a couple of dental schools. But that also means that they have a lot of competition for that talent because those large centers are in large cities and as you all know, pose pretty stiff competition for that talent. As a result, the HR staff, the administration have gotten to feeling kind of negative about Dutch Country's ability to recruit these folks and be fully staffed. This is an attitude that's not unusual at Dutch Country. They do great work, but they don't feel great about it. Their reputationality is suffering because of it. They have some alliances with training programs. Matter of fact, they've developed a strategy to do to work with training programs and host rotations. But they also have a clinical staff that has performance standards and productivity standards as part of their pay, so that they don't want to help out with those rotations because that takes a lot of time and reduces the perception is at least that it reduces their performance. They're a pretty good organization with strategy, but they have this reputationality of scarcity. Now, Northern Tier Health Services is spread across the counties in Pennsylvania's Northern Tier. Well, obviously Northern Tier, that's what their name is, but the Northern Mountains region. That picture that you're seeing right there is what we call the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. It's about 1/4 of the depth of the real Grand Canyon, but it's still pretty dramatic, and it's a beautiful area of the state. Now we call these mountains, people in the Rockies might call them foothills. Their patients are mostly in small towns with depressed economies. Northern Tier is really one of the best places to work. People love to work there. There's not a lot of competition for the personnel in the area, but on the other hand, there's not a lot of personnel to choose from. But Northern Tier has a growth mentality. Over 20 years, their CEO recently retired, and over the past 20 years, she led an effort that increased their size by 200%. Now the former chief medical officer has become their CEO, and he wants to do some training at the health center, within the health center, and build their staff from within. That's what he wants to do. But honestly, Northern Tier has never been all that great at strategy. And so he needs a strategy. He needs to develop that ability internally to develop strategies. They've increased by 200%, sort of by the seat of their pants. But now they need to step back. They've got this great reputationality, but now they need to step back and get a strategy. So these are the houses, as Shakespeare would call them, the Montagues and Capulets, if you remember those families from ninth grade study of Romeo and Juliet, or the Jets and the Sharks, if you remember West Side Story. And within each of these houses are many different players, but the people in the households are of similar types. You've got in the play Romeo and Juliet, you got the parents, the siblings, the best friends, the servants, and the elderly, the older confidant. And so in the same way, Dutch Country and Northern Tier have similar casts of characters. Next slide, please. Oh, there's the bard himself. That's not a picture of me at a younger age. That is Shakespeare. And so in the same way, Northern Tier and and Dutch Country have similar cast of characters. Some of the characters are mandated by HRSA, right? The CEO, the board of directors, a medical director, and others are at the discretion of the health center. But they all, in some way or another, have an impact on workforce and a major impact on the organization's reputationality. You have, of course, your organizational chart with the board and administrators and the chiefs of all the different departments. We already mentioned that Northern Tier is a new CEO, but someone that's been at Dutch Country for a while. Then there are the alpha physicians, the alpha clinicians, the physicians, the dentists, the psychologists, plus a wide assortment of other clinical professions, from dental hygienists to dental assistants, from physician assistants to medical assistants, LCSWs, all kinds of behavioral health staff, and the list goes on. And these administrators and clinicians and a cast of scores of other folks are what make up the core of our cast. They're in the health centers every day. When you think of the health center, they're also representing the health center out in the community. When you think of a health center, when you think of an organization in general, certainly you think of the bricks and mortar, but what really we should think about are the people, because the people are what make up the organization. I know this sounds obvious, but we tend to underestimate the impact of each and every staff person on an organization's reputationality. But they aren't alone. When we talk about workforce, we also have to consider the possible future employees, the candidates for jobs. It could be a young woman from a local high school who wants a career in the healthcare field, but can't afford to go to college. It could be any number of resident physicians who are coming in to interview, or graduates of nurse practitioner schools, or any of those folks. Others could be persons looking for loan repayment. You're oftentimes talking to those folks, people who were looking for loan repayment options or fulfilling a service requirement, and they may not be there for a long time if you hire them, but they'll be there for 3 years or more, right? And then there are the people that we're really looking for, the people who are from rural areas or who want to live in a rural area and will be with us for a long time into the future. Then there are the folks on the periphery. They influence us too. They're for-profit recruiters, state and federal regulators, the payers, the community interests, the folks from the churches and the service and the civil service organizations in your community. All those folks, everybody plays a role in these organizations, and their brand, their image, their identity, their reputation, their personality, right? All of them factor into some degree into these factors that influence recruitment and retention. So what are these factors? Next slide, please. So in the reference, I'm sure many of you are familiar with 3RNet, the National Rural Recruitment and Retention Network, which works very well in concert with STAR² Center. They have a resource called Factors for Marketing Your Rural Health Clinic. There's also one for Factors for Marketing Your Community Health Center. And I believe there's another one, Factors for Marketing Your Rural Community. These are great references, and they list 5 categories of these factors, and under each category are 10 sub-factors. Now, I'm not going to run through all 50 factors. We don't have time to do that, but it's a quick read. It's easy to use. If you need a link to it, well, you can go to 3rnet.org, 3rnet.org, and find this reference. If you can't find it, contact your what do they call it? The member, a network coordinator. It's called a network coordinator now for your state. And there you go. There's the link to it. Thanks, Michelle. And you can go there and download that. They have a lot of great resources, as does, in case this is your first STAR² Center webinar, you have not have much contact with them. They have a ton of resources out there. Thank goodness it's free and still open to me, even though I've retired from working for the Pennsylvania Association of Community Health Centers, because I go out and look at their stuff all the time. It's the first place I go, honestly. So, factors, resources. What are the resources that health center has or rural health clinic has at its disposal? In the case of our examples, it might be logical to think that Dutch country, with its location, the better economy it's in, the proximity to health to training sites, all that might have more resources than say Northern Tier does. And it might be true, but on the other hand, Northern Tier has this great attitude of abundance. And so maybe they've tapped into local training programs and they have a steady flow of graduates from medical assistant and dental assistant schools, or maybe they've done a great job of applying for grants and finding other sources of revenue to help them grow. Obviously, they've been growing, so maybe they've done what they need with that greater spirit of abundance. Maybe they've found these resources, and that's what you need. That's what successful organizations do. They look underneath every rock and every nook and cranny to find the resources they need. The next factor, local environment, or as they say in real estate, location, 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 right? Again, you might expect Dutch country to have an advantage over that, over Northern Tier, because they're in a location that might be more amenable to a larger population of candidates, people who maybe want to work in a somewhat rural area, but don't want to be too far away from large cities. But given Northern Tier's attitude and their reputationality, maybe they make the most of their location. The mountains of the Northern Tier of Pennsylvania is beautiful. It's not for everybody. If you want bustling towns, you're probably not going to find them there. Bustling large cities, I should say. But it's a beautiful place. You can buy land. The cost of living is lower. A lot of the areas across northern Pennsylvania are within 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes from the Finger Lake wine regions of New York, for instance. And so by the way, if you've never been to the Finger Lakes, um, make plans to go. It's beautiful up there. It's a great place to go and hang out. So if for the right person, that environment is what they need. The question is, like with so many of the things we're talking about, Dutch country has their location could be their environment could be a real, and location could be a real advantage to them. But they need to use it. They need to take advantage um, of that edge that they have. Northern Tier also, there's going to be certain people that their environment appeals to, and they need to find those people and then play to them. So the final factor, not the final factor, but the third factor is competition. In every market, there's competition for resources, right? They're for clients, customers, patients, for market share, however you want to put it. Every successful organization has to discover its competitive advantage. I see a lot of health centers who don't think they have that. They don't think they have a competitive advantage, particularly when it comes to workforce and staffing. Yet you have staff, right? So why are those people working there? I think it's essential that we ask them and figure out why people want to work there, and and build on that. Use that kind of information to build branding campaigns and to build uh, job ads and those sort of things. And in this vein, there's the idea of competition versus collaboration. If you think everyone is your competitor and they're out to steal your lunch, it's going to really cloud your viewpoint when it comes to finding collaborators. And let's face it, a lot of health centers can't do it on their own. They need collaboration. You're not the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You need to find a way to collaborate. Among those, even those competitors are probably willing to collaborate with you if you can show to them that by helping you staff, by helping you recruit and retain people, rather than stealing all your medical assistance, that you will help them keep, for instance, keep non-emergent patients out of the ED, or keep babies from low-income families where to out of the NICU for a month or longer after they're born. You're going to save them all kinds of money. So let's circle back. Actually, in the original 3RNet factors for recruiting and in for your community health center, for marketing your community health center, they put strategy and the word that I've substituted reputationality for in the beginning. So I think these are the two biggest factors when it comes to marketing your rural health center, or any health center for that matter. For reputationality really is who I am, or who you are, who an organization is. And strategy is what I do. In both cases, you can look at what I do and look at what I do and what I say I am, and determine if I'm telling you the truth or not. Like that Maya Angelou, it's attributed to Maya Angelou, and I'm paraphrasing here. If you wonder what somebody if you wonder what somebody is like, just wait and they'll show you, right? Hope I can still quote Maya Angelou. In both cases, so for example, you can ask many leaders what their organization's values, norms, vision, whatever, and they're going to refer you to the vision and mission statement on their website. That's great, but we all know those are just words unless somebody's putting them into action. For example, I've looked at a bunch of vision and mission statements on health centers' websites, and a lot of them claim that they are treating the whole person with integrated care. But are they really? I hope they all are, but you don't know until you find out. But do they actually have do a good job of integrated care? Do they have systems in place to make sure that all the patients are getting the medical, dental, behavioral health, and other services that they need? Do they have a reputationality? So I can't even say my own word, of caring. Likewise, if you ask about their strategic plan, a lot of leaders are going to show you a binder with colored tabs and sections and whatever, that shows you their strategic plan. Oftentimes, it's going to be focused on operations and finance. But is it just gathering dust on a shelf, or they're actually going through the steps to implement that strategy? For reputationality and strategy, can you have one without the other? I believe that every organization has organizational values and a strategy, whether they realize it or not. I mean, reputationality is present wherever there's human beings. And as for strategy, if there's not a conscious effort to develop and implement a strategy, then the strategy is to not have any strategy. And I think that's really fairly common when it comes to workforce. Workforce strategies are not what people think about when they think about strategic planning. I think the better two questions are: can you have a good reputationality without a good strategy? And can you have a complete strategy without considering reputationality? Can you change the slide, please? Next slide. So here's my theory. Reputationality plus strategy equals your employer brand. Let's step back just for a second and let's talk about brands in general. So oftentimes people think about brands as logos. The Nike swoosh, the Apple, on a Coke can, the cursive white Coca-Cola words, right? Or on the flip side of the can, the word Coke. That is what people sometimes think is branding. But these logos are really just representations of the Nike, Apple, Coca-Cola brand. They're symbols. These brands are not based on these logos. They're based on people's attitudes, their feelings about a product. Think of one of your favorite brands. Perhaps you have a Starbucks cup sitting in front of you right now, or you're viewing this on your iPad and you're a big fan of Apple products. Um, think about any other. I'm looking around my desk and I don't have a whole lot of brand stuff on my desk, but well, there's my iPhone, and I can't imagine. I'm devoted to the iPhone, the Apple brand iPhone. I can't imagine making a move to another phone. That brand has proven itself to me, although it's too expensive and they keep updating it. That's beside the point. So I was doing a similar one of these programs in Atlanta, the home of Coca-Cola, and I assumed that those hotels, the hotel that we were in, this was for the Georgia PCA, would have Coca-Cola products in it, but they had Pepsi products. Those folks, some of those folks at the meeting, those nice, genteel Georgians were hopping mad about not having access to Coke. Believe me, they went out and they found Coke somewhere and brought it in with them. That logo really means something to them. It means the right taste, the right thirst quenching capability, the right caffeine level, the right fizz and carbonation. And don't tell them that they took a blind taste test, that Pepsi, they'd prefer Pepsi. That is pure blasphemy. They are devoted to that brand because of the feeling. And you can think of other brands that you're, maybe it's a car brand that you drive nothing but a Honda, you drive nothing but a Ford pickup truck. That's it. So just like Nike and Apple and Coca-Cola, healthcare organizations have a brand as both a healthcare provider and as a healthcare and as an employer. I think most healthcare organizations, most health centers have a pretty good grip on their brand as a um, healthcare provider. You go through all sorts of efforts to see how people feel about the care you're offering. You have quality standards. You have UDS standards you can compare to people, other health centers in your state or across the nation, right? You do patient satisfaction surveys. You see how people react to new services you offer in the community. But I think that health centers don't, and most organizations in general do not have a good grasp on their employer brand. I mean, what is your employer brand? Have you thought about it? What is it? Unfortunately, I don't think most employers have thought about it. And that's a shame with organizations like yours serving rural and underserved areas, because you have the opportunity to have one of, if not the best employer brand around because of your mission. The problem with employer brand is it relies so much on organizational personality, reputation, identity, right? And those are intangible. Per, reputationality is abstract. It's real, but you can't put it in a box. You can't touch it with your fingers or taste it. You can point to definite reasons why it exists: leadership, attitudes, values, right? But for the most part, they're all intangible. So let's come back to the equation. Perpet- reputationality plus strategy equals brand. I think sometimes people feel like reputationality, their employer brand, is something that just happens. So therefore, there is a perception that it's beyond their control. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's where strategy comes in. And it's so important. I would, well, I'll get to this in a little bit, but it can be initiated. Various aspects of reputationality can be initiated by a strategy. For instance, a reputationality of welcoming. You want to be perceived as a welcoming organization. So you implement a strategy of a great onboarding program. By the way, you have employees help you construct that onboarding program, giving you input into how they felt about being onboarded, right? How about a reputationality of innovation? You want your employees to innovate, to be thinking about ways of improving your organization. Not every organization's like that. right? So you implement a strategy of um, providing rewarding new ideas, quality improvement, cost reductions, revenue sources, new revenue sources. You have a strategy of rewarding innovation. How about a reputationality of appreciation, where you want your staff to know how thankful you are that they do their jobs. So you have a strategy, you implement a strategy of having of providing heartfelt, genuine thanks to your employees on all levels, for a job well done. A reputationality of community. You want you want your organization, you want your health center to be perceived as because it probably is, but you want the perception to be that you are integral to your community. That might be result in a strategy of seeking out employees of all kinds, of all types, people who represent your community. How about a reputationality of skill growth? You want the employees in your organization to increase their skills. So you have a strategy of providing educational opportunities at all levels of employees, not just upper levels where you're having people, nurses become NPs, and not just at the lower levels. I shouldn't say higher and lower. Sorry, bad choice of words. At different levels, not just your medical assistants becoming LPNs and your LPNs becoming RNs, but also helping your physicians and dentists and so forth increase their skills and add new procedures, new skills to their repertoire. How about a protect reputationality of growing our own? Maybe need to think of a shorter word, but reputationality of growing our own. That might lead to a strategy of establishing programs to build from within, to not to build from within, but to educate people who are coming in from the community. Perhaps that as a medical assistant training program or a community health worker training program in Pennsylvania, and I don't know, this might be nationwide. The area health education centers, the AHECs, offer a free CHW training program. So you just need to find a way of getting people from the community to come in and be trained as CHWs. Or you go the to the full extent, the most expensive kind of most involved kind of training, and start a teaching and become a teaching health center and open up a new residency program. That would help you with your reputationality of growing your own. How about a reputationality of joy? Finding joy and encouraging your employees to be joyful about the work they're doing and the way they're fulfilling the mission. And you do that with a strategy of providing opportunities for employees to express that excitement of working at a health center. Next slide, please. So let's revisit our two health centers and talk about maybe how they apply some of this. You have Northern Tier Health Services, and they have a strong reputationality of abundance. People like to work there, but they're lacking that strategy to really build upon that reputationality. They have it there, it's in place, but how do you capitalize on that? That's what I was looking for. Capitalize on that reputationality. You need a strategy. You need a strategy to build on that. For instance, this is an example from one of our health centers that actually is in Pennsylvania, that actually is in the northern tier of our state. And I won't say which one it was, but they did billboards where they used their current employees, to said basically they said come work with us, and they used groups of their employees ranging from their medical director was on a billboard along with nurses, and their CEO was on a billboard. Groups of pictures of groups of their employees, of course, all looking very happy and everything, and they got a tremendous amount of positive feedback from the community. Their applications for jobs went up. The people on the billboards got people were constantly coming up to them and saying, "Hey, I saw you on that billboard." It took their attitude, their reputationality of joy in working there, and put it right up there on a billboard where everybody could see it. And it was a strategy to, and it worked great. And I'm hoping it still is working. On the other side, we have Dutch Country Community Health Center, and they are highly strategic. They have strategies for a lot of stuff, but their reputationality is one of, of kind of defeat. Of they have an inferiority complex, if you will. So they need to build on. They need to remind people why they're working there. They need to take that strategy and use it to and apply it to the workforce. And it's difficult to do that. So, because if you ask me which one of these two I would rather manage, I would rather be CEO of or HR director for, it'd be Northern Tier because reputationality takes a while to build. But I think a lot of health centers already have that. I think Dutch Country is, we're using that as an example, but they're an exception and not the rule. At least that's my experience. Can we change the slide? So, uh, I, as I looked at this, I realized I need to write a new headline for this. I'll say no more, but we all want a happy ending to a play, right? You go see a movie. It's always better. Now, Romeo and Juliet really does not have a very happy ending. If you're, I won't be a spoiler for you, but things don't end up great for Romeo and Juliet. But here's what some things you can do to help your organization really take advantage of your reputationality and have a great strategy for workforce growth. One is I think this is number one up there because I think it's number one going away is helping your organization take a good, honest look at itself. This is difficult. This is really hard to do. And sometimes you need somebody to come in, an objective third party to come in from the outside and really take a good look at you. I just worked on a workforce plan for a client. I'll just say a client, it doesn't matter who it is. And one of the things I brought to the table, and this is not an advertisement. One of the things I brought to the table was the ability to really look at, to get a good hard look at what they were doing, and hold a mirror up to them, and they really appreciated it. It was, believe me, the reflection in the mirror was not very harsh. It wasn't like they thought they looked like George Clooney and they ended up looking like me. All right, but um, but without without a third party being there, they were not going to get that good hard look at themselves. Sharing success stories. I think you can share success stories within your organization and outside your organization. People who have succeeded, people who work there who have succeeded, who love working there, and you can share those in vignette, in short videos, in testimonials. You can share those on your website. They can be as long. A success story can be as short as one sentence in a photograph. It could be something like Mariah. A picture of Mariah and Mariah Blake, and this is Mariah came to STAR² Center as an LPN and has worked here. And after 5 years of working here, she's an RN with a bachelor's degree. It can be something that succinct. Um, anyway, tap into resources like STAR² Center. I mentioned this at the beginning. If you haven't used that, please do. 3RNet has great resources. Your PCA, your Primary Care Association, by all means, should have access to a lot of resources. And um, and then also forming communities of practice. You don't need your PCA. If you work at a PCA, it's great if you can form communities of practice among your health centers. Maybe communities of practice for rural health centers versus urban health centers, ones with similar issues. Um, Pairing up with the health centers and clinics in your area that with like problems or like issues. In Pennsylvania, all the health centers and I don't think this is that unusual, all the health centers in Pittsburgh in the southwestern part of the state formed an alliance, and they actually have a 501(c)(3). They actually a formal organization called the Three Rivers Three Rivers Alliance of Community Health Centers. They're all still members of PAC, of the Pennsylvania Association of Community Health Centers, but they're working together in southwestern PA, mostly in Pittsburgh, to improve their health centers and improve the care they offer. Conducting group meetings and encouraging ideas exchanges. I think this is really good for the PCAs to do. And then supporting one another, network, dialogue. Pick up the phone if you know another health center is doing great work, and pick up the phone and call them, find out what's going on. Write them an email, send them a text, go visit them. Get in your car and drive. Well, it's easier in a state the size of Pennsylvania, but but to drive one from Philadelphia to Erie is 6.5 hours, so you're not going to do that. But go and visit other health centers and sit down and find out what they're doing. Why are they being successful at recruiting? You want to be your one of your goals. I hope one of your goals, one of my goals, anyway, is to be that one that other people are calling and asking for advice and asking for information and asking for dialogue. That is the position you want to be in. So that, I believe, is my last slide. I've been talking for a while, and maybe we can have some dialogue, some questions. There's my email address. Be glad to dialogue with you, converse with you, and yeah, and first consultation is free. After that, it's $5,000 an hour. So, but no, I would love to talk to you. I learn by talking to all kinds of folks. So if you want to set something up, that'd be great. If not, that's okay too. So
Awesome.
there you
Thank you.
go. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Jed. Yeah, I'll leave up this slide so people can have your contact. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And there's some people that are saying that it's great to see you, that you did an excellent job. So Jill is one of them.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Doug,
Good,
you are
good to
very
hear
well
from you. Go,
known.
Jill. Go Birds. That's all I got to say to you. Go Birds.
And I did have a question that came through regarding just the work done with branding and marketing at health centers. And if you could talk a little bit more on, how do you finance that? How do you support that financially?
Financing it. Yes. Well, um, that's a good question. We did a large scale workforce marketing campaign in Pennsylvania that was fed by COVID money. So it really kind of is a one-off or an anomaly, if you will. I think this is where strategy comes in. If you're going to have a workforce, if you're going to have if part of your strategy as a community health center is that you're going to increase, you want to build a new site in a new community. Okay, that's pretty common. You're going to do a new access point, or you're just going to build a new site or take over a doctor's office or something in a community. Part of that strategy, I think so many times what I hear of is that the CEO and the finance guy, or woman, excuse me, the CFO, the chief nursing officer, the medical director, they all sit down and said, "Yeah, let's open up a new one in Anytown, USA," and they don't, and then they go and they tell the HR director or they tell the recruiter, "Hey, we're opening a new site. We're going to need this person, this person, this person, this person. Go." And they don't finance it. They don't put, there's plenty of money in the budget to renovate a building or to build a new building. Plenty of money in there to, install all the computer systems and buy all the equipment and all that. But there's no money in it to recruit. And without that, I mean, that is where you have to start. That's got to be part of your bottom line. Um, I know there's a lot of health centers out there that have very, very scant budgets for recruitment. And I think that's a huge mistake. If you can't staff a site, what good is it? And that's the argument that I would encourage people to make. And it isn't always a comfortable argument to make. But go out and get some pricing. Go and that this is where people like the STAR² Center and 3RNet and people like that can help you out, is how do you develop a budget for recruiting? And part of that recruiting is a branding campaign where you are advertising out in public. You're not just going out and it's not just paying for Indeed and posting on LinkedIn. There's so much more to it than that, because if you don't build that identity, if you don't build that reputationality of a place where people want to work, um, then you're gonna be constantly going uphill in recruitment. And I think I can think of several. I can think of, there's 53 health centers in Pennsylvania. I'm familiar with all of them. And at least I was. It's been almost a year since I retired, but I'm still pretty familiar with all of them. And I can tell you which ones probably have a budget and which ones don't. I can tell you, and by by those budgets, it doesn't need to be. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. We're talking. There's some really simple things you can do that are basically free or low cost. One is, I think the first thing you need to do is really look at your website, and that's the first place people go. I know that there's and your social media presence too. But look at your website career page, uh, and and ask people from outside the organization to come into that web page and tell you what they think about it, because you probably built it, so you probably think it's just fine. And it probably isn't. uh, I look at very few of the, uh, is it easy to apply for a job, for instance? Is it do you make people jump through a whole bunch of hoops just to apply for a job? They're not looking at it like it's a privilege to work at your organization. They're looking at it like it's a privilege for you to hire them or even talk to them. Okay. Particularly physicians, dentists, nurse practitioners, they do. If you're making a physician, for instance, a physician candidate, fill out an application before you talk to them, that's just that's just bad for them. They won't. A lot of them won't. And the ones that are willing to do it, mm, they're desperate for a job. And most physicians who are worth having are not desperate for a job. We're desperate for them. They're not desperate for us. Um, so I would say that, and then the a second thing that's really, really cheap or free is short video vignettes of people's testimony, of your employees' testimony. I mean, you got an iPhone, you got a smartphone, you've got a video, we all know this. Take a short video of somebody, uh, you know, so somebody comes to you and says, you know what, this really went well. This XYZ really happened. It was really great. For instance, when I was that now I'm rambling, but that job I did, that consulting job I did, the place I did it, one of the people I interviewed, um, I said, if you have anything to share, come back in. And everybody there, all the clinicians I was talking to, were using the word family. It's like a family here. Wow, that's a great per reputationality. And they weren't. That's one of the things that I said they need to build on. They weren't really using that, even though it was like that. She came. I said, if you have something else, she came back and she said, you know what? I just saw the CEO in the hall, and this CEO is really kind of a low key kind of guy, nice guy, but real low key. Nothing. And she came back in. And she said, you know what? We're going to say his name's Mike. It's not, but we're going to say Mike. I just saw Mike in the hall, and he greeted me. He knew my name, and this is a very small organization, but still there's a couple hundred employees. Um, and he asked me how my day is doing. He does that every time I see him. He calls me by my name, and it's not just me. He said it's every staff person. Mike knows us all by name. I mean, you put that on video and you put that online. That's what people are looking for in a place to work. You know, uh, you can you people will work for a little bit less money, not a whole lot less money, but a little bit less money for that kind of feeling when they go home at the end of the day.
Yep.
Can you tell this excites me? Anyway,
No, and Judd, I think and as you know, with the STAR Center, we talk so much about that, where it's like, if you're not investing in your workforce, you don't have a health center, because if you don't have a
right,
workforce, you don't have a health
right,
center. So
right.
critical importance of everything from the recruitment, the retention, but that organization, that part is critical, like knowing, like, yeah, every day the CEO is going to say hi to me. And I feel like, especially when you're looking at rural health centers, just the organizational values, norms, all of that are being built. I can't say the word, I'm so sorry. I can barely say the word rural at times. So
Rural. Per
that's,
reputationality. Yeah, well, you
yeah.
saw I stumbled over it a couple times. Anyway,
But that, I mean, I feel like that's what creates so much of the uniqueness of what it's like to work at
Yeah,
health centers.
yeah,
I did have another question because this has actually come up in other presentations. We've done presentations on branding and marketing, especially for those health centers that are in rural areas. And sometimes I've gotten a little bit of pushback where people are like, "Well, we know people know we're a health organization, so why do we really need to focus on that?" So what would you, and I think in your presentation you really covered a lot of this, but what would you kind of like very quickly say to those people who don't quite understand the critical importance of having a brand and what that means beyond just saying, we're a health center or we're a healthcare organization?
I think a rule in communications, maybe a rule in life in general, is to assume other people don't know
Mm,
anything.
yeah.
You assume, I mean, obviously, if you've met me on the street, you would automatically assume that I'm pretty, I don't know anything. If you've met me, you would know. But no, you need to. Everybody, people do think that everybody else knows what they know.
Mhm.
um, and it's just not true. you
Mhm.
know. And particularly, I mean, one of the phrases that just drives me crazy is that health centers are one of the best kept secrets. Well, okay, so if we're one of the best kept secrets, then nobody knows about us. And particularly when you're talking like physicians don't know about health centers unless they've done a rotation there. Um, Believe me, they do not know what health centers do. I worked at the Pennsylvania Medical Society for 20 years. I hardly ever heard about health centers, until I started to work for PAC. And so people do not know what you do. They don't know what it's like to work there. They don't know, and that's why like testimonials and things like that are so valuable because it's not me telling them, it's not the recruiter telling them. It's Jane and John Q. Public. It's particularly in the rural areas, it's the person down the street, right? It's the person
Absolutely.
from the next town over who, people, a ton of people in that next town,
Mhm.
um, who are telling you this. And so it has authority, it has believability, it has, yeah, it's, um, there's a word I'm looking for, but it's believable because
Right.
somebody is telling you that.
Exactly. You're putting that message out there. So, which is
Right.
critical. And we always keep emphasizing that. So, I know we're almost at time. So, Judd, I just wanted to be able to say thank you to you for presenting with us. Like I said, it's always so wonderful to have you here. You're a great friend of the STAR Center and ACU. We already went through questions. I did want to just pull up the slides in a moment. Mariah is going to have the evaluation pop up. So, if you could please fill that out. And then thank you to everyone who attended this three-part series. Always wonderful to have this audience. Judd, thank you so much. Is there any last pearls of wisdom that you would like to share before
Just
we close
hey,
out?
Yeah, well, everybody just, I know what you do is hard, but take great pride in what you do and who you're doing it for. And if you don't lose track of of your mission, you don't lose track of, and it's easy to do in the day-to-day world. If you don't lose track of the great things your health center is doing, man, that goes a long way to helping you do what you do. And I'd love to hear from you just to chat or just exchange ideas or whatever. No, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judd. Thank you, everyone. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, morning, wherever you're located, that you have a wonderful day. And Judd, again, thank you so much. This was
You're
wonderful.
welcome. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.